Size does matter, and bigger isn't always better, at least when you're an iPad. But size wasn't actually the decisive factor why I switched from an iPad 9th generation to the iPad mini 6 for my flying. So here are the two main reasons why my current flypad is the iPad mini 6. When I started my private pilot license, initially everything was done on paper. And to this day, I always carry a paper map with me when I'm flying. Both as an analog backup, but also because I actually think it gives me a better overview. But as time went on during my training, we gradually switched to an electronic flight bag. So the pre-flight preparations, such as the weather, performance calculations, mass and balance, was all done on the iPad. And also the visual approach charts were now all electronic. Since I had this iPad 9 just lying around, this is what I used in the beginning. Because if I already have a device that is suited for the task, I am not going to buy something new. Especially because at that point in my flying career, I didn't know what I would need. And for pre-flight planning, this thing is amazing. It has the perfect size to give you a great overview of all of the charts, to find information easily. And writing on this thing feels like writing on an A5 notepad, so I liked it quite a lot. But as soon as I started taking this into the cockpit, I started to notice some issues. Since I also have my visual approach charts on the iPad, it basically replaced my kneeboard, which means that the iPad is sitting on my leg for most of the flight. Now the issue is that I mostly fly a Diamond Katana, which is quite a small two-seater aircraft, and the cockpit is not very spacious. The next thing with this aircraft is that you fly it with stick, meaning that the iPad will just get in the way. And especially during full aileron deflections, it's inevitable that you're gonna hit the iPad with the stick, which means it will either fall down onto the middle console, where it might hit the throttle or the propeller controls, or it would fall down into the legroom, which isn't great either. And even if I attached it with a mount to the window, that would just block such a large area that it becomes impossible to safely fly VFR. Now this setup was not ideal and definitely a bit annoying, but as I mentioned in the beginning, it was not the decisive factor for getting a new iPad. The main reason why I switched to the iPad mini was actually GPS. Now my current iPad 9 only has the Wi-Fi option, meaning that I only have GPS on this iPad when, well, I am connected to Wi-Fi, which I am not during flight, which also means there's no GPS in flight. Now you would argue this is not really a problem, since I mostly navigate visually, orienting myself by referencing landmarks on the paper map with what I see outside. I was taught like this by my flight instructor, and I think it's actually really cool because over time you really learn all the villages and towns and rivers and mountains all around Switzerland. But some regions in Switzerland can be quite challenging to navigate, essentially because they're very repetitive and everything looks the same. So telling two villages apart can be quite tricky. In these cases, I actually like the ability to cross-check my visual navigation with the navigation in ForeFlight. But to do so, I need GPS. Now, if you're not connected to Wi-Fi or the internet in general, one of the easiest way to get GPS onto an iPad is by having the cellular version. And that's why I realized very quickly that I would need to get an iPad with the Wi-Fi plus cellular option. Now, if it were only that, it probably wouldn't matter which iPad I get. And especially for pre-flight planning, as I mentioned, the bigger iPad is actually a bit nicer. However, inside the cockpit, because everything's a bit narrow, I actually prefer a smaller iPad. And that's why eventually I opted to buy the iPad mini 6 with 256 GB of storage and, very crucially, the Wi-Fi plus cellular option. I also got the Apple Pencil Pro with it to write on the iPad. And what I like about this is that it attaches to the side of the iPad magnetically, and that's also how it charges. So I don't need to worry about charging my Apple Pencil. I only need to make sure my iPad has a full battery. Now, I've used this setup for quite many flights now, and overall I am very happy. I sometimes wish I had a little bit of a bigger iPad for the pre-flight plannings, but it actually has the perfect size for use inside my rather narrow cockpit. To be honest, I actually haven't used the GPS function a whole lot while in flight. Again, mostly because I navigate visually. Now, the few times that I did use it, especially navigating around military airspace, I was actually very happy that I had the GPS available. Now, would I buy this exact setup again? For me, yes, 100%, because it ticks all the boxes. Does this mean this setup is the best for everyone? No, probably not. Because it will really depend on your needs. Whether you use an electronic flight bag in the first place, which aircraft you fly, whether you have a GPS pre-installed, for example, the type of flying you do, such as IFR versus VFR, all of these things will determine what iPad solution is the best for you. For me, this works great, but it might look different for you. And that's why I'm curious. Do you use an electronic flight bag at all? And if so, what iPad or tablet in general do you use and why? Let me know down in the comments below. I wish you a wonderful flight, and as always, thanks for watching.